Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of the Lords of Consciousness video cast, coming to you from the sacred deserts of Arizona. I am your host, Clint Culberson, and today I am excited to bring back a guest, Tolec, representative of the Andromeda Council, and he brings along with him our dear friend Adona of Star Ancestry. How are you two today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having us on your show, Clint.
Oh, always.
Doing awesome, Clint. I want to echo the same sentiment. Thanks for having us. It's always a pleasure, always a treat to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, Tolec, we had you on this time last year actually, and we had a wonderful discussion. Actually, has been one of our most viewed videos that we've ever done, and it was. I think it's a testament to the work that you've done, and also just these topics that that you especially are bringing up, and I think a lot of people are really interested in our star ancestry, and that's why I'm so grateful to have you on, Adana, and just our star, maybe our star future, and our star presence. What is our current, our current relationship with our galactic community, and the people out there who are in connection with higher dimensional beings in this universe. And Tolec, you're one of those people, and if you want to listen to more about kind of Tolec's his connection with the Andromeda Council, feel free to check out that first interview, and he has many other interviews where he discusses what his role is as a representative of the Andromeda Council and what does that mean. Is he a channeler? Is he not a channeler? And he's not a channeler, and he goes into that in the first one. And anyway, it's we live in very interesting times, and it's exciting to see exactly where we as humanity are going along this path of ascension, as I like to see it, and I think many other people see it as that way. I wanted to kind of throw this out to both of you guys as we roll into 2018. We're a month and a half in. How have you guys seen the energy shifting as a collective, as a planet? And where do you think we are along this ascension timeline?
What I've been told by my guys is that the ascension process, it just depends on where the people are at the level of how should I say, the level of belief systems, because everybody's at a different level in terms of where they're at in their learning experiences. Now, some of the people may sense things that are different about themselves, but they couldn't put their fingers on it. Those type of people that are yet awakened to understand what's happening with their physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies within themselves. Other people who are spiritually awake and aware, they go with the flow. They allow it to happen with the energy that is coming into the planet itself. And they can sense Mother Earth is also changing. So, it's not just one life form on this planet that is changing. Everything is changing on this planet. So, in terms of the structure of the old paradigm that many of the people are accustomed to is slowly being dismantled. It's slowly being, how should I say, breaking up, because we cannot have the old paradigm into the new paradigm. It just doesn't work that way. We have to bring it down to the level of starting with a foundation again and rebuild on that foundation. And some of these things that the star people are bringing back to our attention is really to reintroduce us back to things that we have lost over time throughout the centuries because of the powers that shouldn't be. had infiltrated through all of the program factors that's going on with this planet and its people. So all that has to be broken down in order for us to, how should I say, get the record straight in terms of what really happened from the centuries, from the beginning of the centuries that we've been here to up to this point. There's a lot involved, Clint, in terms of what I understand from the Andromeda Council meetings. There's been a lot of discussions as to, okay, what can we do to benefit humanity? What things that we need to do to bring about and raise the vibrations of humanity without having them going through difficult moments of that experience. And, you know, they were talking about in the council meetings, they were talking about education, they were talking about medical in terms of counseling and because you're thinking not only of the physical body, but you're thinking of the emotional, mental, spiritual bodies. You know, it takes all that in. It's not any different than what we have here. In our physical realm, we have our own doctors, we have our own counselors, you know, to deal with all of the changes that's coming about with this ascension. As to the political, social, economic situations that's going on, that too is being restructured, being broken down to the basic level. And as I was shown with, especially with Trump in the United States, he's here for a purpose, and he's here to break it down to the basic level. And most people are not used to that because they've been so accustomed to the comfort zone of the past centuries. So when all of a sudden you have somebody that's new, that's coming in, that is not involved in the political world, but wants to better the lives of humanity, they have to have a change to break it up. And that's not what people are accustomed to, but they are coming around slowly to realize, oh, this is what needs to be done. Look what's happening. It's improving the quality of life, at least for the United States, that we understand. That's all I have in terms of what I've understood from my guys, my star people.
Tolec, how do you see this energy coming into the 2018?
Well, as Adona was addressing, and there are a number of individual points that she addressed, so I'll try to take a few of them.
Right.
As this solar system, inclusive of this planet, moves, continues to move through this area of higher dimension, higher vibrational frequency of space, it is in fact an individual experience that each person is having on this planet. If you talk to some people, Clint, as I know you do, you'll find some people are substantially affected. There are certain, if you will, shift and or ascension symptoms that they feel, that they physically feel that, and it's just, for some people it's bothersome for them. Other people, they're not dealing with any physical ramifications. They're aware of the changing energies, but it doesn't bother them from a physical perspective. I know that up here, and I'm sure you appreciate this, up here in I guess somewhat mid Arizona in the higher climates, in the area of Cottonwood and Sedona, there are a lot of people who are tuned into what's going on, especially in the Sedona community. And all of these topics and more are discussed in various either formal conferences or informal get-togethers like we had last night. We were out listening to Shakara Tosha and Garrett Duncan, who's actually a Navajo shaman, very, very gifted young man. Shakara was addressing different topics that have to do with what they are learning through the people from the different star systems that are coming through with light language and codes and what information's coming in. And essentially it was an all night session educating the, I think like 20 some odd people in the room in terms of what they can expect in terms of this new information, this new vibrational frequency, and how to, I guess, more easily adjust to these changes that are coming. So that was a fascinating evening. At the breadth and scope of this topic, you could almost pick any particular aspect of our lives and delve into any one of those to find out how we're each individually being affected. You know, at an individual level, a social community level, a global level. You know, it's as Adona was saying, there continue to be so many changes that ultimately what's going to happen when our galactic brothers, our higher dimensional brothers, start visiting with the people of Earth, and maybe even before that, our history is going to be rewritten, because there's been a lot of, I don't necessarily call them lies, but over the course of centuries, fabrication, you know, creation of how man first came to be on this planet. How did humanity first get here? And that's an old story. And I certainly don't believe that it fits we evolved from a simian, you know, an ape-like line at all. This planet's been visited and colonized by many different spacefaring races for thousands of years. And we've been here a lot longer than people realize. So our whole history is going to be rewritten. In terms of Trump, I want to speak briefly about him. He, like other presidents, like many others actually since JFK, have been selected and appointed, which means the national election process is a fraud. Rather than focus on that, what I will say is that he was chosen at this moment in time to be an instigator for the advent of change. He was purposely brought in to change the system the way it's been, break it down, dismantle it, take out the parts that aren't working, and help to get rid of people who aren't contributing to making this a better planet and a better life that we live. So Adona and I were talking about Trump this morning, and I think a few other people as well recently. And it's our understanding that Mr. Trump is a walk-in. Now, he may not be a complete replacement walk-in, but a braided soul. You know, the man who's got all of those years in the business world and solid decision-making power, that part of him remains. But the kind of knowledge and depth that needed to be added to him to take on the additional challenges, there was another even stronger soul that came in and braided to his original one. So that's, you know, it's going to be an interesting ride here in the US to see how he and his administration continue the process of breaking down the systems that don't work and bringing in new ones that do.
Yeah, you know, and that ties in with where I was wanting to take this in terms of the cabal. You know, and there's been many theories, of course, that the global elites have ultimately been operating under the direction of nefarious ETs. Call them reptilians, call them whatever you want. And you know, I'll leave that to you guys to give me more of the details. But I've heard different answers to these questions from people that are in this community. And that is that these nefarious ETs have been removed from the planet, and it seems like somewhere in the first decade of the 2000s. And if that's the case, who are these global elites answering to now, and who's at the top of their head, and what is their destruction looking like right now? I mean, sometimes I have moments where I feel so faithful and hopeful that these guys are getting taken out. And then of course there's other days where I start thinking, oh my gosh, man, Donald Trump's just one of them, or that nothing's really ever going to change. So I kind of wanted to, I know I just gave you a lot there, but can you guys fill me in exactly what's going on right now, at least in terms of on the dark side of the picture?
Sure, if I may. So first of all, let me say that with regard to Mr. Trump, I'm neither a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. I don't have any party affiliation, and I don't have any either favoritism or thoughts or feelings of, oh, Trump, he's like,
Right.
I don't have any of those.
I could literally say exactly what you just said, and that would hold true for me as well.
Yeah. So when I'm revealing this information about Mr. Trump is simply a reveal. It's just sharing information based on what our star family and Andromeda Council, Galactic Council, as they're known in deep space, what they've shared with us.
Right.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is that as Adona and I talked about 6 and 7 years ago, the dismantling of the infrastructure of the reptilian presence that has dominated, manipulated, and abused global human society for thousands of years. That formal dismantling began with the destruction of the remaining 15 underground and also the 2 underground bases that were the Lattice network of bases in Washington, D.C., and the 1 underground in Colorado. Now, most of the work was done by the people of planet Cana in the Procyon star system, and the Colorado base was gotten rid of by the people from the Sirius A star system, the same technology. What did that result in? Well, that resulted in tens of thousands of Draco, primarily Draco, Sirius B, Orion Reptilians that were removed and sent to a planet in the far, far edge of the universe. It also resulted in the capture of a number of what we would call generals and colonels in the Draco Reptilian army, for lack of the military presence that they had here. That the destruction of those 15 bases and 2 underground also included the capture of high-ranking Illuminati officials and also high-ranking generals and colonels that were sent to the Andromeda Council primary biosphere for war crimes tribunals. A number of them, actually all of them, were convicted. Some chose death. Some chose positive mind reprogramming. And the others, very few of them actually, in terms of those generals and colonels, were shipped off to this planet at the far edge of the universe. Why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant because that time frame of late 2012 led to the loss of power and control at the top of the reptilian hierarchy. And that also resulted in a net sum total of about 120 reptilians on this planet. About 70 of them are purebloods, and they're deep underground, making the decisions and still pulling the strings of the puppets on the surface. And the remaining 50 or so, some odd, maybe the number is a little higher, of hybrids who are in the top positions of global power in the healthcare industry, in government, in corporations, in media, in energy, you name it, including religions. So what we're dealing with today is a relative few pure reptilians that are deep underground, pulling the strings, making the decisions that still remain. And a number of those lieutenants, if you will, the hybrids, are still executing those orders. Some of the hybrids have been removed, not all. I'd like to turn this topic over to Adona, and she can share with you what is the likely scenario when all the reptilians will be removed from this planet.
Okay. Once they are all removed from this planet, it frees humanity to wake up out of the matrix, so to speak, and see the real reality of not only what's happening with themselves, but what's happening with the planet. And it creates.
Yeah, and I'd like to, I'm interjecting because I'd also like you to talk for a moment and address what you feel might be the trigger moment for the Reptilians to reveal themselves. You know, false flag event kind of thing, because ultimately they're going to come out from underground.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so
they will come out from underground.
If you address that part first.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
This gets juicy.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. They're going to basically pull out their last card. And the last card would be to create, the only time I could come up with is imaging of the holographic picture to humanity in terms of, oh, we're the good guys, these are the bad guys. And so that's going to create within the minds of humanity, if they are not spiritually awakened, they're not going to be able to see the difference between who's good, who's bad. It's kind of like putting on a mask. It's kind of putting on a front. Now, those who are spiritually awakened, they will be able to see them. Yeah. It's kind of like a lot of the people today are talking about shape-shifting. And you can see the shimmering of you know, it's kind of fuzzy look of that human being. And you see the fuzziness of that human being who claims to be a human being, but are not. And they are shape-shifting. They're trying to hold on to that pattern. But there's a way for humanity to, shall I say, discover who's the false flag people, is that they can, through their mental ability, we all have it. It's through the mental ability. This is what I was taught by the commander of the Andromeda Council, main biosphere, is to hear yourself whistling. When you hear yourself at a high-pitched whistle within your mind mentally, and you project it to that person of his or her mind, it will start creating a shimmering, shattering. They can't hold on to that form of that human form. Then they'll know that that's a false black person.
Right. And also it's quite possible that, as Adona said, they might likely well present themselves as, we're here, we're the ETs you've been waiting for. We have all of this great technology. We're going to help set you free. We're going to heal you. It's heal you. All sorts of empty promises. Watch not what they say, but what they don't deliver on. That's A. B, it's likely they'll be presented as, the 7.5 foot tall or 8 foot tall, prototypical, beautiful, masculine and feminine, blonde Nordics, when in fact they'll be reptilian hybrids.
If you think of this, I don't know if you've seen this movie or series called Fee like a picture.
Mm-hmm.
The Fee was represented by the false flag in terms of they come, all of a sudden they materialize to the earth people, and they have that, like he said, the Nordic, or, it appears human beings, but behind it, they're reptilians.
Right. And if their cover gets blown and that doesn't work, I believe they'll likely try to have an overt power grab. They'll actually try to take power, and that would be the big reveal. That's when they'll get squashed, taken out.
Well, they're waiting to, our people, our star people, our loving, benevolent people are waiting till they get to the high point, like he said. When they produce that last desperate card wanted to take the power,
Right.
that's when they materialize to put an end to it, because they don't want humanity to be taken over again. They don't want Mother Earth to be taken over. They want to give Mother Earth and people back, the freedom back, the peace back that so long been denied to us. And that's the ending card. That's going to put an end to that.
I know the most difficult question to answer is, when, picking an exact time. And of course, under that pretense, there's nobody knows exactly when. But do you know if the Light Alliance has some sort of timeline on this in terms of, are we talking like in the next couple of years? Are we talking over the next 20, 30 years? Is there any frame of reference for time on this?
Well, I'll respond, and I'll certainly let Adona chime in as well. If we are talking about our ability to better reclaim our lives and to live more balanced lives where we have greater free will and we're getting, if you will, managed and put down less frequently. That means that many of the human and or reptilian hybrids, and I've used the word before, they're lieutenants at the top who've been pulling the strings, and there are a number of names that have been thrown out there, but that those people are taken out of position of power. And the more that those people are removed from power, and the more that certain systems that have been in place, like a severe taxing of us, and the list goes on and on, the busted healthcare system, the more that those systems start getting broken down, the greater that humanity has its ability to, if you will, rise up and improve itself to be at a higher and higher level of consciousness and a spiritual awakening, if you will. Mm-hmm. Everything that I've learned from our Andromeda Council Galactic People contacts have told me that it's not about when, it's about the events happening on this planet. And so all the events I just mentioned are dependent on people and systems that are changing. The other thing that's an event is there are near future earth change events that are going to continue to happen at a greater frequency and at a greater magnitude. At the peak of all of that is when the transformational shift of this world is expected to happen, expected to take place, which means a wholesale change from organic life to literal spiritual high energy life. Will we see better days before then? Will we see a better quality of life before then in this country and in other countries? I certainly think we will. I think that we're going to see, contrary to my own belief earlier, I think that we're going to see some kind of change in the financial system so that at some level, the Federal Reserve is going to get taken out. The US Federal Reserve dollar, which is basically a dollar issued by a big loan sharking agency, is going to get taken out as the global currency. I believe these things are going to happen. And when that happens, you'll have new types of currencies and different kinds of opportunities. Do I believe that we're going to have a global society and a US society that is flush with money and everybody's rich and there are no parameters? No. Mm-hmm. And moreover, it's going to get rolled out at one step at a time. I really don't see the good guys going, okay, here's all this money, go ahead, have a party. Yeah. That's not going to happen. At least from my position, that's not going to happen. Adona, any of your thoughts on the things I just said?
Well, it's interesting that this topic has come up because last week, because everybody has been asking when, and as Tolec was saying, it's not the when, it's the what. But the commander and our star family explained to me that in Earth time, it's within 100 years. And they showed me that, like what Tola had just got through explaining, it's going to take one step at a time. We didn't arrive here overnight with all of these problems we're having in centuries. So if you take that and realize that it's going to take a little time to undo everything that has occurred and start from scratch to rebuild, it's not going to happen overnight. But we are already seeing, changes here. For example, he was talking about the tax dollars, the income tax type of thing. And they had just rolled out on January the 1st of this year that no longer will the IRS imprison people because the tax is really voluntary. It's not part of the United States Constitution. So we're seeing a little bit glimpse of changes that's happening. And we just have to be open-minded and be aware of what's going on around us, what type of changes that is being dismantled to create a better life for all of us. And same thing with the ascension process. The ascension process is not going to happen overnight, because some of the things that I have seen from Azar, who is the chief medical officer who works with me, as far as seeing the soul essence of the person, it depends on his or her development, where they're at, and how much can they handle? How much can they absorb in terms of the ascension process? And they do not want people to have a heart attack, for example, in this time and period of change. So they're gradually building up down and bringing in downloads to the people a little at a time so they can absorb it and handle it. So all of that has to take place. So they're giving me, like, within 100 years. They can't give me a time, a exact time or a date, because people can change. People can say yes one minute and no the next minute. And that we have to take into account for the people.
Yeah, it seems to be this fine balance between being patient and understanding that these timelines that are taking place on the political level, on the collective consciousness level, on the Gaian consciousness level, are huge timelines, something very much generational, okay? I mean, as much as we'd all love to take it all in a lifetime, this is far beyond one generation. Now, with that said, how do we balance that patience with also this like fervor that many of us see in us? When you really look at the world's wealth and you realize global poverty could be eliminated in a very short period of time if we just set our intention towards it. I mean, honestly, it would probably take within 2 years, everyone in the whole world could have clean drinking water if that's what we chose to do from a collective level. I mean, it's one thing that, of course, there's the focus on yourself and in your communities and the grassroots level, because, we can't sit around waiting for, the world leaders to figure it out, or the bankers or the guys holding the purse strings. But there is like that part of us, though, that says, man, if we just put that military spending into the good things of this world, we could reset this planet quite quickly. Even when we're talking about environmental reparations, it would be pretty quick. I honestly think within a couple decades we could reverse everything we've done, and not only reverse it, but turn it into something even better than when humans even got here. And maybe that will take generations to get to, but that's our potential. So how do we as a people balance that, you know, patience, and then also that, no, man, this could be so much better, and we want it now.
Wow. That's a very deep question. I think that pragmatically, some of the answers to this question will be born out of some of the changes that are coming to the global financial system, which up until now has been based on the Federal Reserve debt note, also called the petrodollar. And what's going to happen with the new currency that will be issued? Because there will be, from what I'm understanding, there will be a new currency issued that will be in our hands, you know, the we the people part.
Mm-hmm.
And once that happens, that the petrodollar as a global trading dollar no longer has dominance, that the question of the collective, and I'm going to speak metaphorically, US debt. Now, most people don't understand or know that when politicians and or the people involved in the US corporation talk about debt, they're talking about the amount of interest that's created in the form of debt every time we hand over that green piece of paper called a US Federal Reserve note. Because on that piece of paper, it says, this note is good for all debts, public and private. Now, because of my education, I know what those words mean. And as an example, the legal meaning of a note is debt. So guess what happens every time you take a green piece of US debt paper and hand it to somebody else? We, each of us, create more debt that is supposed to be payable to the US Federal Reserve, who is simply a big money laundering loan shark. We're paying them in the form of interest to print and distribute money. It's a pretty awful situation when you think of it. When that situation is taken out and there's a new global financial system, that will be the beginning of a more equitable life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying it's going to solve all the problems.
It will be a big linchpin in
yeah,
you know.
it will. Philosophically, now I was just talking practically, but philosophically, and again, we were talking about this last night, until the concept of money as a global society medium, as long as it's intact, we're a slave society. Right. In terms of being financial slaves. Once money goes away, then the whole game changes. Yeah. Because that whole statement of, if I have a lot of money, then I can have a good life. Well, what will likely happen is, if I can use this new technology I have, then I can have a really good life, and I can create things that'll be helpful to other people. And the whole concept of debt and money, once it goes away, that's the game changer.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I was told by Star Family is that, as he said, once the financial system falls, it's done away with. What's going to take place is that the Andromeda Council has already discussed what can we do to improve the quality of life in humanity on a day-to-day basis.
Even if it's in its current organic form.
Right.
Yep.
And they have been talking about technology. They've been talking about energy sources. They've been talking about advanced technology to provide, for example, food for them. They've been talking about, we're going to create a trading system from other star systems, from other planets with this planet. We're going to bring them up reintroduce them to new. It's not really new. It's bringing back into humanity's hands to correct history, advanced education, trading system. What do they call the system of between exchange family program, where the families can go on a ship and visit another world where they can learn about that world, that culture, and there's an exchange that would be going on. So what they really, bottom line, what they're telling me is that we have all the necessary supplies in the universe to maintain the quality of life for all life forms that exist therein. And since Earth is kind of like put under the wings of the Andromeda Council, it's under the Andromeda Council's umbrella. And so they're going to make sure that Earth will not have all of these wars and nuclear weapons and all of the stuff that's been going on for centuries.
Are you talking about once Earth gets the invitation to join the Council as well as the Galactic Federation?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because right now, like I said, they're under the umbrella. We're under its umbrella, meaning they're going to make sure we're taken care of.
Okay. All right.
That's the thing. They already have submitted the plans for membership, for Earth to be have a membership within the Andromeda Council and the Galactic Federation. So we're coming back into the fold of the galactic communities. And so the galactic communities will want to trade with us, will want to help us to catch up, so to speak, get to where we need to be, that we should have been centuries ago.
Is the only way to get to that place in terms of entering the galactic community, is the only way to get there for humanity to reach some level of unity consciousness or Gaian consciousness?
Thank you. Point well made. It's been my knowledge from the beginning of me doing this work that we as a planet would only be extended an invitation to the Galactic Council, known in deep space, the Andromeda Council, known in deep space as the Galactic Council. And it's if you will, day-to-day facilitation management company, the Galactic Federation. That invitation would only be extended once the global community of planet Earth has grown up to the level that we are emotional and spiritual adults, and that we are a peaceful, we may be a race of great diversity, but we're still a humanoid race on this planet Earth. Once we reach the level where we are emotional and spiritual adults, that's when that kind of information and technology will be released, and only then. We have to be adults first, and not a danger to ourselves or any of the other planets in the Federation.
That's right. That's right.
We've got to grow up.
Tolec, you brought up the topic of technology. In many ways, we're in a race right now, if you ask me, between our advancements of technology and our own spiritual advancement. And I think that those are two lines that have to be monitored all the time. I mean, I think even in 1945 or whenever, I think that's when it was, when we dropped the atomic bomb on Japan, it seemed to have got the awareness of our galactic community, because potentially those two lines were too far apart. Man, these guys have gotten pretty far technologically, but spiritually they're still a bunch of idiots. Right now, artificial intelligence is advancing rapidly, and if you ask, in my opinion, I don't really believe that the general public has any idea how far advanced we are in terms of artificial intelligence. How does the Light Alliance view artificial intelligence, and is artificial intelligence us, humans being the creators of something new? I mean, is this just history repeating itself? I mean, is this how human beings themselves were created by higher dimensionals generations ago?
Wow, you've got a few salient points in there, so I'll take the first one. And again, this conversation came up last night in different conversations we were having, but it was one of the central themes of this get together of 20 some odd people. It is our right, and to whatever the degree of the abilities of each person, depending on where they live, but it's our right and our choice to be able to get out into nature, to breathe clean air, to listen to the sounds of birds chirping, to go for a walk at least every once in a while, but to immerse ourselves in nature as much as possible to quiet the chatter and the noise in the human brain. This was echoed many times last night in the various conversations. You and I are using technology today. That is pretty amazing. We're able to have this conversation. Now, you happen to be, if you will, down the street from us in the greater Phoenix area, but we could clearly be having this conversation just like I do with JP in the UK, or people in Australia, or people in Netherlands and Spain, France that have interviewed me. Because of technology, we're able to have these conversations at a relatively very low price point. That's the upside of technology. The downside of technology is that each of us choose to allow it to run our lives, to let technology be the focus of our lives. I believe that's not the correct way to live. I'm having my own frustrations of AI when I'm dealing with this, what most people are allegedly calling smartphones. Well, where I'll say something like, I need to get this information to you, and the phone will correct me. The phone will change my words. Now, I'm going to find the setting and turn this correction off, because I don't want this phone to think for me. I believe if people choose to make that same decision, they can set up their technology so that it doesn't run their lives, so that they do the thinking, not the technology. I'm not a proponent of AI, never have been. You can extend that conversation into, of course, what's coming in the not too distant future, which is androids and robots that become self-sentient and self-aware, and what kind of rights do they have? That's going to be an interesting moment in our future when that happens. But in terms of computer systems that automatically make decisions for us, no thanks. And I'm doing my best to counter that every day. Donna, your thoughts?
The most people that I've seen using technology that we have today, unfortunately, is the children, the teenagers. To them, that's their toy. Their mind is so focused on games and cell phones and communications. Like you said, that one aspect of it is good, but the other aspect of it is not good. And we need to be able to help our youth to look up, put the phones away, put their computers away, go out with nature. There are other things that they could discover for themselves without having the technology controlling their lives.
Right.
And that's what I think most of what's going on, that really, as a mother and a grandmother myself, that really bothers me with that, in terms of the technology controlling the children's lives.
Right. And it can also lead to dysfunction. because in terms of interactive communication, young boys
Right.
and their friends, girls and their friends,
Right.
are they talking to technology or are they talking with each other?
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard of situations where young kids, 9, 10, 11, 12, are having conniption fits because their parents are taking away their technology and they're throwing tantrums.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not good. That means that they're dependent on that technology as part of their lives. The other aspect of this same topic is that many people may not believe it, but I was sitting in the Arizona shuttle once. I'd flown into Sky Harbor just recently and taken a ride up here. And I happened to have a conversation with a guy who used to work for one of the smartphone companies. He was a programmer. And he said they were specifically given algorithms and code to insert into the phone applications to create addictive behavior. The same kind of code and algorithms that are used in the software that runs the machines in Vegas for gambling. So there's a purposeful intent to distract people from their moment by moment, day-to-day lives by infusing addictive algorithms into into alleged smartphone software. That's not good.
Another thing is, with that information, is that I have asked, what about the children who have autism? What about the children who have ADD, or whatever they call that particular type of children? What about the children who are deaf? Now, I was born with nerve damage to both of my ears, and I've been wearing hearing aids since 3 years old. So hearing aids in the technology form helps me to be able to communicate with humanity. It has its good points. But I asked him, what about the one like he was talking about and making it addictive to these? What about these type of children? And Asa said they have a filter system within them. So they're not affected by that type of technology of subliminal messages. I'm not affected by it because I'm filtered. So I can't hear or I cannot see anything in terms of sublime messages coming through me. It won't go through me. It gets blocked off. So I'm not affected by it. And therefore, I'm able to go through life without having that subliminal messages come through like that.
Yeah, I mean it's the ultimate double-edged sword. We live in this world of duality, and technology is can't escape it as well. And the internet, in many ways, and I've said this on the show many times, the internet has freed humanity, and also and it's become a new slave master at the same time. And I suppose, just like you guys had mentioned earlier about how we are entering this period right now where there's going to be a necessity to rewrite history, and to look at everything again through a new lens, and we must question everything and use logic and reason to rewrite history. Well, the same is being done in many ways, in the ways that we've become out of balance as a people. And technologically speaking, we've become way too dependent on it. We've allowed these tools to become, manipulators, and unknowingly so. Honestly, I don't believe most of humanity had the spiritual wisdom enough to not let it do that to themselves. And so, me included, I say that as a victim of it myself, and have allowed that to happen in my life. And it's something that I'm consciously working on all the time, is how do I use this tool to better myself and to connect with others, while still having not letting it control my everyday life. And some days I would lose that battle, and I think all of us can say that, and especially with these phones. And I do foresee potentially even a movement of people who are going to be getting rid of these smartphones. I mean, ultimately, don't you believe that we are headed back towards physical world communities where there is going to be more face-to-face interactions, where if you really want to get out of this system that a lot of us are finally realizing is not our friends, and I'm one who totally believes that, and that even I do have a goal of distancing myself from the system as much as possible. Do you guys see that is the where humanity is trending towards in terms of coming back into physical world communities? Neighbors actually talking to each other?
Yeah. I think that moreover, I feel that as these changes, as instigated by Mr. Trump and the next president who will follow him, I do believe that we are on a positive path of reclaiming our lives. That's the first thing. I also believe that if during the course of this time period in our near future, as the systems that run around this world start to get interrupted because of Earth changes, people are going to have to start interacting with each other more. Mm-hmm. I also feel that you're going to see some significant changes on the coastlines of many countries, lands falling away. I see the cities, the large cities, the Phoenixes, the Dallases, the LAs of the world, that the importance of these cities are going to go away. Mm-hmm. And that the importance of people being in smaller communities. And that is, if you're someone who wants to reclaim your life, that you'll choose to move to a smaller community where you can have intimate get-togethers and, hanging out with friends just because you can do it and making the choice to do that. Our get-together last night, nobody used any slideshow presentations. It was all independent conversation. Shakara and Garrett were leading the way, but there was no technology used. And I found that refreshing, that we spent a good 2.5 hours just talking with each other and learning what these two people were presenting. So I think the technology will be better, but I think it's our drive to reclaim our lives and lessen the importance of the technology, like you mentioned, will be the way that we can live better quality lives. Donna, those are my feelings.
Okay. What I have been shown off and on for the last 30 years is that the planet, Mother Earth herself, will birth the new Earth. But it comes in bits and pieces. Around the world, you see volcanoes popping off, you see earthquakes popping off. That's creating change for the communities. And the communities is making a decision. Do I want to stay here or do I want to move inland? Also, the idea that all of the ones who are spiritually attuned, spiritually awake, and aware people are making their own relocations. This is happening more frequently, and I've been watching this through my own contacts with my own clients over the last year. They're all wrapping up their old lives and moving where they're being pulled to. Like, for example, here in Sedona, there's a lot of people moving inland from the coast. And they're looking for houses, they're looking to settle down. Why is that? Well, because you've got healers, you've got telepathic people, you've got people that have engineering knowledge, you've got people that have agricultural knowledge. They're all being pulled together and getting settled before the ones that have yet to be awakened will be coming in. So I've been seeing this all over the world. That is happening right now. And once these people get settled, then they're going to have to help all of the ones who choose um, to continue their lives and to provide the things that need to be provided for these people that are coming in. I don't see Earth flipping or changing like overnight. I just see it as a gradual thing for the Earth and its people. The people, it's also teaching the people, it's awakening the people, but it's up to them whether they choose to remain or whether they choose to move on to their own new locations, wherever they need to be on this planet. And the reassurance is this, is that they are not alone. They have their own guides, they have their own star families. The star families are doing their best to connect with them and to let them know that there is nothing to fear for their future, because the future is secure within their soul essence. So our lives will improve over time. Right now, we're seeing chaos. You know, everything's all upheaval. That's part of the change. It's shaking everything up from the old paradigm and coming into the new paradigm. There is always hope for the people. If they would just realize that and really open their hearts. When they open their hearts to a very simple thing called love. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. And love is what bridges all life together. And when you have that love, you will have that peace. And when you have that peace, your body will transform itself in a much easier way than normally would.
Adona, you answered my next question so beautifully, and I was going to ask. There's so many people in this world right now who are having a lot of internal stress. I mean, call it existential crisis, if you will. Suicide rates all over the world are higher than we've seen them before. There's a lot of people who feel like they're losing hope, and I was just going to ask you if you could speak to those people right now, and you basically just said it so beautifully. And I guess I'll turn it to you, Tolec. How would you talk to someone who is feeling that existential crisis in their life? How would you tell them that, hey man, there is something far better to keep stepping forward towards?
It's a really relevant topic, and I'm probably a good person to ask, I would think, because back in 2011, I left the corporate world for good. I had been an international banker. Now I was an operations guy, so I was not somebody who handled any high level money at all. Just operations compliance kind of thing.
Right.
And then I was in the asset management world at the same level, operations. And in the early spring of 2011, I left. Now, having said that, I've done a lot of things since then to bring money in. And I'll tell you that it has not been an easy life. It's been challenging. But I will also say to anybody listening, it's been very, very rewarding to be able to own my life, to not have to get in a car, to be compelled to drive somewhere to work every day, to meet somebody else's agenda or somebody else's schedule. And it's a freeing experience to be able to make choices that fit more in line with who I am as a person. I think that's the bottom line. When you start to live a life that's driven by your own internal heart and the gifts and the skills that each one of us has that we can use to the best of our abilities, then the quality of your life can improve. Now, from a philosophical perspective, from an existential perspective, I believe that's true. It may not be always the easiest path, but it's a very, very rewarding path. The other thing that people can do is much more simplistic, and I've been talking about this one for years. Walk away from mainstream news, turn off your television with all of the drug commercials that are forced down people's throats, telling people how sick they are. Walk away, turn it off. I have a screen, and I turn on that screen when I put in a movie to watch a movie, but I don't watch commercial television. Predominantly, I stay away from it as much as possible. So I'm reducing my risk to be exposed to negative programming. I would tell people turn it off. For the people who are living in third world countries that need clean running water, that need new opportunities, I believe that as many of these sweeping changes start to happen, there will be resources, financial resources freed up to help these people. I have it on some good sources that there are going to be some significant projects that will be started in communities that have the most dire need to help people. That's where some of the first money, if you will, for lack of better words, will be targeted. So there's some good news on the horizon, but I think it's each of our own ability and responsibility to ourselves to lead the kind of life that we want to lead, not dependent on what the media tells us.
Mm-hmm. Adona, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Pretty much he has said exactly what I have gone through and experiencing within my own life. I've seen people lose hope because they dread going to work. They dread having to get up in the morning and do the jobs that they don't like to do. In my case, I was on Social Security disability for many years. And until one day I said to the universe, I'm being called to do my telepathic communication. And so I trust you, universe, to supply wherever it is that I need to be able to become independent and move on with my life. And sure enough, the universe supplies the need immediately because I trust in the source, I trusted myself, I trusted my guides. So I encourage people to find what their passion is. What do they want to do with their lives, within their heart? Do they want to paint? Do they want to be a leader? Do they want to be a healer? Whatever it is that their soul essence calls them to do, believe in it. Believe in yourself. Believe that you can be the type of person that you've always wanted to be in life. And tell your story. I tell that people all the time through, speaking engagements, speaking tours. They have a story to tell. And I want them to go up at the front of the room and tell their story because I have an interest in where they come from, why they're here, what is their purpose in life, where are you going? And to encourage them that they are just as important as we are, where we're at, because we have been where they have been, going through life. And that's my answer.
Yeah, really well said.
Yeah, beautiful. I just want to thank both of you guys for the messages that you bring, and you know, I know for some people, you guys go out on the thin branches, if you will, and that's some people I know will have trouble with that, and that's okay. And if you're listening, I just ask you to you know, stick to where you're comfortable. That's fine, but just listen with an open mind and open possibilities for that which is beyond your five sense reality. But one thing that I really love about you guys too is you have the trunk of the tree as your foundation always. You know, it's like even our event last October, where I mean it was definitely out there, you know, in terms of many of the topics we were talking about, but it was always brought back to the foundation of get back into nature, you know, connect with the earth itself. And it enabled us as we became grounded again, and enabled us to go out on those branches again. And I really appreciate you guys for always kind of bringing it in or and out, or you know, as above so below. And I think you do it so seamlessly and beautifully, and it definitely helps those who have trouble on those outer branches. And I really appreciate the work you're doing. Is there anything you guys would like to share in terms of events you have coming, or you know, where can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And actually, what you just said is leading me to this thought. Yes, we're having the third annual Transformational Shift event, third annual Transformational Shift U.S. conference. It'll be co-produced this year with Joe Anthony from Light Within, Planets Within. But this year, instead of being out on the Mesa, it will be closer to all of the activities of Sedona, and yet it's going to be in a pretty amazing setting. There's a place that people around here know quite well. It's called the Sedona Creative Life Center. Well, I'm making a point of pointing this place out because that's where the conference will be held. It'll take place September 28th, 29th, and 30th. And that center is not only a great place for special events and for conferences, but it has its own pretty incredible grounds. And people will be able to walk among the cedar and the juniper and the pine trees and the landscape of the high desert. There's a great natural setting up there, even on the grounds of that center. So people will get out into nature, even within the context of that conference. It's going to be called Messages with Our Galactic Family, A Great Awakening. And we've got only a few speakers committed so far. Adona will be one of them. Michael Horn from the Billy Meyer Pleiades contact case will be another. I expect to flush out more speakers in the next 4 or 5 days. And probably within the next 2 weeks, I'll start selling tickets. Once we get all the top speakers lined up and committed, that's when we'll start selling. So people will be able to learn about that conference on the transformationalshiftlife.com or transformationalshiftevents.com website, as well as the Andromeda Council website. Adona?
My work is mainly working with the people of the Star Ancestry. I provide basic and premium reports to reawaken the people of Earth to the star families. My website is www.starancestry.com, and they're more than welcome to get a basic reading or a premium reading. Once they have done that, if they want Star Pendants, that's been produced by Dan Bagitti, and Earth Missions, if they want to find out what am I supposed to do with my mission here on Earth at this moment in time. So that's what I'm doing for humanity.
Beautiful.
And I'll do a brief plug for Adona, just because I've watched her amazing ascension in her career. Keep in mind, you were doing things similar to this back in the 80s, but this is the first time you've been public in terms of your mature adult life.
Yes.
Right? And so here's the plug. She has reached, I think, in excess of 700 plus people around the world in a year and 3 or 4 months. Not only people from the US, but from about 37 or 38 countries around the globe, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I was really surprised at not knowing that there are other people out there in other parts of the world, in remote countries, that are awakened. And they are where they need to be at their location so that people can find them as well.
So yeah, you've just from an observation standpoint, you've made a real positive impact on a lot of lives. And again, not only globally, not only in the US, but globally, 37 plus countries, yes, which is pretty amazing. So my hat's off to you for the lives you've been able to touch.
Way to go, guys. And, you know, you're both testament to, you know, you both shared your stories in terms of the world you had come from before, you know, and it's scary as hell to make the jump, okay? No one's saying it isn't. But, man, it's so worth it. And I always say one of my favorite quotes of all time is nature rewards courage. And when you show courage, then you get rewarded. It always happens that way. Somehow it will happen. So just keep being courageous. And Tolec and Adona, you're both two people who are living testaments of that. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on today. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, Clint, you're very kind and you're very gracious. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and your audience. It's been a really great conversation. You've done a great job covering these topics in a very deep way, in a very compassionate way as well. So
thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Clint.
As always, we'll do it again soon.